All right, good afternoon. Liberty North AP Psychology. It's virtual Wednesday, January 13th. And we are starting our next big unit, which is Cognition, Unit 7. The module was just published, so it's on Canvas. So your learning targets are on there. Your vocab is on page 384. And today we're going to introduce the first cognitive process that they cover is memory, which is a big one. So I'm going to introduce that today. I'll send a picture of both parts of the board on Twitter after class. But also, just so it doesn't stress anybody out, this diagram will be on the board throughout the entire unit. So I'm not going to erase this because it's just going to be important. Everything that we do, we'll do a lot of fun memory activities, games, challenges will relate to this. We're also going to watch some really cool videos. So this is kind of the big notes for memory. And then every learning target can be answered here, except for the names. So I think there's 10 learning targets for memory. I think this is every learning target except for number 3. Okay. And then when we end today, I'll specifically address learning target 1 and 2 because they're kind of the big general ones, but they are in here as well. You just don't know what they are yet. Okay. All right. So we'll go back, and as I go down the learning targets, I'll point on here where it is. Okay. All right. So we're on page 319 to 320 in your book, and they have a very similar diagram. This is called the 3-stage model of memory, which is kind of what research and science has taught us. Is a great visual representation of how our memory actually works. I think it was first drafted in 1955. It was revised in 1998, and then again in 2011. And 2011 is pretty significant because we discovered a brand new memory phenomenon called superior autobiographical memory, or SAM memory, which we will watch some videos about. So it's kind of a really exciting time to be in neurological research, specifically pertaining to that. But the superior autobiographical memory ability that we discovered in 2011 was 6 people originally we didn't think existed. So we did not have diagrammed on this model. We thought it was impossible to have that good of a memory. Those people remember every day like it was yesterday. So just as clear and as vivid as your memory is with things yesterday, they can go all the way back to age 9 and 11. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So we'll watch videos on that, photographic memory, and then we'll do some activities. Okay. All right, so you're not going to see my head in a lot of this video, but that's not what's important. I want you to see kind of what this is, okay? All right, so what we have is in the diagram, in red, I have your memory stages or systems, so sensory, short-term, long-term. In black, I have your processes of memory, so encoding, storage, and retrieval, and kind of which system of memory they fit in. In green, I kind of have your definition of each stage or system. Brown, I have the neurological implications or important parts that we need to cover. All right. Okay. And then conscious and unconscious. All right. So just to introduce this. So basically you need to picture your memory just like you would a sense organ. It's like a giant filter. So again, we talked about every sense organ is basically a giant filter to catch input and filter it down, right? And that's actually just the way your memory works. So it's a giant filter. So it grabs everything that my senses pick up and input, and it filters it down into the important parts that I need to remember, okay? So the book, it starts with an external event. I think a lot of the things I'll be referring to are probably school related for you guys, because I know that's probably one of the main things you think about when you think about memory is, learning, class information, stuff for a quiz, and trying to get it permanently stored in long-term memory, okay? So it starts with an external event. The first stage of memory that picks up all the information from my senses is called my sensory memory, okay? Thus its name, right? And it's defined as my holding bin for my any input and sensory information, okay? So it's going to grab all of the information from my senses. And we've already established countless times that my senses are always on. They're always gathering information. Okay, so this is huge. All right, now this is really called the encoding stage. All right, so its main purpose is encoding. All right, Now, I think you guys know what storage is, the ability to keep it, and retrieval is the ability to get it back, okay? So in our definition of memory, obviously you have to be able to keep it, right? You also have to be able to retrieve it, because if I can't keep it and then find it, it really doesn't do me any good. Okay, and then the third process, which is really important as well, is encoding. And I always remember encoding by editing, EE. Okay, so encoding basically means editing, summarizing, filtering out all the unnecessary information and just dumping it. Okay, so what's going to happen is this stores information for just a few seconds so that encoding can take place. So it like holds all of our input and sensory information to where the important parts can be edited out and then they're passed on. Okay, so again, this is going to catch information from all my senses. So now when you're at school, generally the two senses you're worried about are vision, and auditory, right? Because that's kind of generally how you learn information. Okay. Now, when we divide up into groups and project-based learning, you might use your hands and feeling and touch, kinesthetic stuff. But generally, just for simplicity, that's what you're going to use. So it's going to hold for a few seconds all my sensory input. It's going to drop, taste, taste, smell, and kinesthetic sense. It's going to keep auditory and visual, and then pass it on down. Okay, so it's kind of like when you're taking notes on this video, or me in class. Again, I think I've used, you're not going to write down every single word I say. You're just going to summarize it. You're going to edit it. And then you're going to kind of write that down rather than trying to remember everything. Okay, because you're not going to do that. Okay, so this is the start of the filter. Grabs everything, encodes out, edits out what's important, sends it on, and everything else is forgotten. Okay, so anytime I have encoding, I have forgetting, because stuff is being edited out. All right. Next stage is short-term memory, okay, or what is called as active working memory. All right. This is the most important kind of stage system of the memory process. So I put a star by it. It's also bigger. It just does more things, but right off the bat, you can tell it does all three processes of memory. So whereas sensory and short-term do two processes, sensory and long-term do two processes, short-term does three processes. So encoding, storage, and retrieval. So this is going to edit further. So, it kind of like the book shows the diagram, like you got 10 bits of information here, 7 get passed on, 4 get passed on to here. Okay, so I am encoding information out again. I'm editing, therefore stuff is being dropped. Storage, short-term and active memory, is going to hold things briefly just for me to use them. Okay, so it's going to kind of hold on to information as long as I need it and that I'm using it. And then it's going to work with long-term memory in the retrieval loop and retrieving information that I will need for the day, for a class, for a subject. It's going to load it. So again, when we talked about our consciousness dial, again, when you wake up in the morning, your active working memory is going to pull in the information that it needs, right, for you today. And it's going to hold it there for you to use. And it's going to kind of do that each day, all right? So the stuff that you continually pull and that's in here that you need, it's going to keep it here, okay? Then once you're done with it, it'll drop it or it'll pass it on into long-term memory, okay? All right, so again, getting back here, going a little bit more in depth. So my consciousness dial, remember, is like the ViewMaster analogy. So you pull out a ViewMaster disk, it's got 10 pictures on it, right? I can put it in the machine and I can see and click it to any picture I want, but I can only do one picture at a time. Right? Okay. Well, that's how this works. And again, it's very busy here. You got information coming this way, you pulling information that way. This is a pretty busy part of my brain and of my cognitive processes. So my episodic buffer is actually what chooses the 10 pictures or the disk. Okay. So each day it's going to choose what's here. All right. And actually it's just doing that throughout all the day. What do I need here? What do I need to work with? I need my psychology information. I need my memory of the building layout, where my classes are, where my friends are, the times, so on and so forth. Okay. And then my central executive is actually the dial. It's actually then it's gonna spin and change to what I need to focus on. So there's a lot of stuff in here, and I don't need to focus on it all the time. So my central executive is going to change the dial. It's going to turn the picture, right? and it's going to choose what picture I'm actually focused on. So this selects the disk, what I want to look at, what I want to use, and this is the specific dial that then focuses on the one picture. Okay. All right. So, when you get up in the morning, everything that you need for the day is going to be loaded in here. And then, so that's your episodic buffer. And then I'm going to focus on, directions to school, how to brush my teeth, how to drive a car, where's first hour, okay? Where are my friends, okay? What homework do I need, and it's going to constantly change all that. Then once I'm done with that stuff, it's either going to drop it, hold it here, or it's going to pass it on to long-term memory. Okay, so a lot going on here. Again, we'll focus on this one quite a bit, and we'll use it as examples starting Thursday and Friday. Okay. Now, if it gets edited out of here and it gets put into long-term memory, we believe that it's stored forever. It's permanent. Okay. And then this also works with active working memory for the retrieval. Okay. So everything in here is filed, it's organized, and it's permanent so that I can find it. Now, neurologically here, every time a long-term memory is created, we have what is called a memory trace is created, which is a neural network to a specific memory. So again, remember the concept, neurons don't work individually, they work in networks together. And this is just a specific type of network. It's a memory trace. So anytime I have a permanent long-term memory established, I have a memory trace that goes to that specific memory, okay? And we'll talk more about those later, okay? All right, so here's my retrieval loop, all right? Okay, now this is called conscious processing. So for me to consciously work with this information, I got to work it through the filter, right? I got to work on trying to retrieve it. Now, this all also can happen unconsciously, okay, which is just my brain doing it. And my brain can work it through the filter, or my brain can just simply skip the entire filter and take it from an event and then stick it right into long-term memory, okay? So, I think the theme that we're going to be talking about is that I can control my memory and my brain controls my memory. But the one that always wins is my brain. Okay, the brain is ultimately in charge of memory. So if you really want to increase your memory or make it more efficient, you got to work with the way your brain does it. Because if you and your brain are combating or fighting, the brain's always going to win. So I always use example. My mom always used to like to bake cookies in the evening. And so it'd be a lot of times when I'd be studying for tests or whatever at school. And there'd be so many times, as you guys have experienced, in which I just can't get the information through the filter. I'm studying it, but I'm just not getting it. I just know it's not going to be there, but I would always remember the cookies. So when I came to take a quiz or a test, I would struggle with the information, but I would always remember the cookies. What type of cookies, the smell, my brain just grabbed that and shoved it in there. That's kind of the lesson there, is that the brain is always going to work. And it would be great if we could all do this with everything that we needed to remember, and then we would remember everything, which is kind of what your superior autobiographical people do here. Your photographic memory, people work it through the filter, actually. It's kind of more of a conscious, it's kind of a combination here, okay? But superior autobiographical patients say, I don't do anything. It's just there. So it's just boom. Okay. All right. All right. So over here, just to review, we're going to go over AP Learning Target 1 and 2. All right. So what we have up here is the learning targets 1 and 2. Now, I apologize. I wrote them out of order, but it was a lot of writing. And so once I realized I got them mixed up, I just did it like this. So AP learning target number 1 is kind of compare and contrast or identify the different cognitive processes involved in memory. Okay, so again, black on the diagram, we have encoding, storage, and retrieval, right? We also have automatic versus effortful processing, okay, which automatic would be the unconscious processing and effortful would be conscious. So this would be stuff I got to work through the filter. This would be stuff that my brain either works through the filter automatically or it just jumps the entire filter, okay? We also have some over here. We have, and these two are just exactly like they sound, deep versus shallow processing. So in memory, that's going to be stuff like that deep stuff is going to be stuff that I really, really need to learn. I really need to retain. I'm working with it a lot. I'm really committing it to memory because I'm going to need it in the future. This would be like maybe how you study for very, very important tests. maybe even professional tests moving forward, like, the bar exam, the MCAT, the GRE, any of those big tests. Shallow would be like, you're studying for just like a 5-point quiz. You're just going to kind of casually look at it. This might even be cramming, because you're not going to keep it. So you're just studying it for the test. Okay. So this is information that I really, really work to retain and I use a lot. And this is stuff that, I'm just going to kind of just remember one time maybe. Selective versus divided processing is kind of the same thing. If we just put this here and put attention, selective versus divided attention, which we've kind of already studied, I think it helps you. When you come into class, and I come into class, some days we're very selective, some days we're focused, we're really in tune to learning, to committing stuff to memory. And then other days, our focus is divided. We have a wandering mind, other things are on our mind, and we're thinking about other things. So that can even happen within one class for you and for me. You can have first half of the hour, I'm selective, I'm focused, I'm in the zone. If things are going well, I'm retaining, I'm working cognitively at a high level, and then my mind starts to wander and it gets divided. Okay. And then cognition is the very famous term of thinking about thinking. So that's actually what we're doing this chapter. This is a big AP word, AP test takers. We are studying cognition and on different cognitive processes, which is metacognition. Okay. Learning target number 2 is identify the systems that are involved in memory. Okay. And also called stages. So again, we have everything in the red over there. So we have our 3 systems of memory: sensory, short-term, and long-term. And then what I will add later is we also have implicit versus explicit memory. Okay. Implicit memory is going to be, it's also called procedural memory, and that's going to be anything that's kind of unconscious with the unconscious processing. This is stuff that my brain's going to retain from me pretty much automatically. And it's stuff like how to do things, like how to drive. Probably all of us could get back up on a bike and ride it because of implicit memory. That's part of that. How to brush your teeth. You don't have to focus on brushing your teeth in the morning. You kind of just do it, those type of things. And then explicit memory is what you do when you come to school every day. So that's when you're effortfully, consciously, trying to commit names, information, facts into memory. Okay. So this is stuff and like behavioral stuff that I need to survive. And this is kind of like information and facts that I don't necessarily need, but I want. Okay. This is called declarative memory. Okay. So it's kind of like automatic versus effortful as well. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's the start there for memory. Okay. We'll have a lot of fun on this unit. And again, I think your memory will evolve. I'm not going to say we're going to make your memory better, but I think you'll understand it and how it works better. And then you can understand how to work with it. Because the best way to improve your memory is to understand how your brain naturally does it and wants to do it and do it that way. Then you're not combating against each other. Okay. All right. If you have any questions, you can email me, or there's an open Zoom meeting that's there every day. And if you want to jump on that and ask me some questions, I'll respond to that. Okay. All right. We'll see you Thursday and Friday. Have a good Wednesday.